And the Dark Knight has risen and delivered the Mets a division title. The victory tour continues. This is SportsZone. Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of this season of SportsZone. Also, day 2 of the Dan Lignato New York Mets victory tour. Woo. Anyway, we are going to kick off today's show with a little interesting segment. We're going to do rapid fire of a few topics we don't usually have time to get to on the regular show. We're going to open on the soccer pitch for the first time this season. I'm Dan, of course. I've got Vince. I got Rachel. And as I said, we're opening on the soccer pitch. One of the most impressive performances of this week belongs to Robert Lewandowski. You may have heard the news. He scored 5 goals in 9 minutes after coming in off the bench one of his games. He plays for Bayern Munich. And then proceeded to follow that up with another hat trick in another game later on. So Vince, I'll open with you. Talk about this incredible performance.
Well, I think it's more significant and it's more impressive when you look at the opponent, at least that he scored the 5 goals against Wolfsburg. They're a very good team in the Bundesliga. They're perennially second or third, so it's not like he was doing this against a team battling relegation that's really just, out there for Bayern Munich to slaughter. Wolfsburg last year defeated Bayern Munich by a count of 4-0, so it's not a team that necessarily is just going to roll over and just, you don't see anybody very often scoring hat tricks. It's very rare, so 5 goals, especially in that short time frame, I can't think of a word really to describe it other than just spectacular.
Spectacular is certainly the buzzword. I believe the new statistics have him on pace to break the Bundesliga goal-scoring record in a season, but 5 goals in 9 minutes will do that for you. Transitioning from Germany over to Spain, at least in terms of club soccer, a significant injury hitting FC Barcelona, one of the better teams in the world, as Lionel Messi, considered by many to be the best footballer in the world, is going to miss probably up to 2 months with a torn ligament in his knee. So Vince, what kind of impact could this have on Barcelona, as they always go toe-to-toe with Real Madrid over there in the Spanish league? So what kind of impact could this injury have?
I think it's not going to have as significant an impact as a lot of people think. The La Liga now is just kind of a 3-horse race between Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. Real Madrid has injury problems of their own. Sergio Ramos and Gareth Bale are both going to be out for a significant period of time. And, well, Messi is a big component of Barcelona. They do have Neymar and Luis Suarez. So I think really in the grand scheme of things, if he was out for a longer period of time, it may affect him more. But I think Barcelona will be okay.
All right, and now we're going to transition over to an area we very rarely ever even covered in the history of SportsZone, I think. We're going to head to the racetrack and talk...
It's a sport.
We're going to talk some NASCAR, which, as Rachel will tell you, is a sport. Guys, it's a sport.
4 left turns mean everything to these people.
4 left turns over, how many hours of driving in a circle. But there are some very good drivers out there, and one of the most well-known, I would think, NASCAR drivers to be racing has announced that he's going to be hanging it up pretty soon. Tony Stewart announcing he will retire in 2016. So Rachel, what kind of legacy will he be leaving on the sport?
Tony Stewart is definitely leaving his mark on the world. I grew up with him as one of the big drivers in my household, obviously, only succeeded by Dale Jr. and followed by Bobby Labonte. The last championships Tony Stewart won was in 2002, 2005, and 2011. Now, although that was a long time ago, he is still up there in the books. He was very significant to the last era of Winston racing, which was before it became Sprint Cup racing. He does have his own empire under smoke, which is about a lot of barbecuing in cars. He has these diehard fans, and the Home Depot car was his big thing. And although he's had some rough starts, this is his worst season in 25 years. He's definitely known as one of the greats, and it'll be very sad to see him go.
Well, there you go. Remember, guys, NASCAR is a sport. Unfortunately,
three wide.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this Rapid Fire segment, not to be confused with ATV's other show, Rapid Fire. But for more SportsZone, stay tuned. It's coming up later.
Hello, and welcome back to SportsZone. This is our premier NFL segment, Going for Two. And I'm joined by Vince, yet again. This will be a common theme throughout the show. It's the Vince show, actually. And Ryan. And guys, basically we'll start off right here. Week 3 is almost in the bag. Tonight, we'll start off with the Monday Night Football game. We have the Packers and the Chiefs, two premier teams, obviously, coached by excellent coaches, and that have a lot of depth throughout, whether it's the Packers going with Aaron Rodgers and Eddie Lacy. They have a solid receiving core, but that core is only made better with Rodgers, and the Chiefs with Jamal Charles and their receiving core with Jeremy Maclin and Travis Kelce. So basically, let's just throw it right over to Ryan, tossing it up real quick. And Ryan, I guess give me your evaluation of these two teams going in and what you can expect.
Well, I think the Green Bay Packers, you're going to expect a lot of the same. You're going to expect probably a big passing yard game from Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be using Randall Cobb. He's going to be using James Starks now to the backfield because of Eddie Lacy being out. And you're really going to expect a lot of the same out of the Green Bay Packers. The Kansas City Chiefs, their passing game has evolved pretty much overnight with Travis Kelce. I mean, they have Jamal Charles, obviously, who's still healthy, which is very surprising to many football fans
good
out
for
there.
me. He's on my fantasy team.
Well, I think it'll be a very good game. I think it might be a very high-scoring game. I don't know. Both have very high-powered offenses, so I think it'll be a good game, though. And
so, obviously, we're touching on the offenses, but Vince, let's kind of switch over to the defensive side. We obviously know that the D-line for the Chiefs is just outrageously, amazing, especially in that division. And then you have the Packers, who, like I said, they're just a really well-balanced team. So, what do you take away with this defensive matchup that we see? Aaron Rodgers obviously is, unstoppable at Lambeau. So.
I would say keeping that in mind, I feel like also considering the just comparison of the quarterbacks, Alex Smith versus Aaron Rodgers, defensives notwithstanding, I think you would expect Aaron Rodgers to have a bit of a better game, also playing in Lambeau Field. Now, keeping in mind that the Packers do have a significant injury and they will have someone missing on the defensive line, how that'll affect them at all remains to be seen. But I feel like ultimately the defense of the Packers will prevail despite Tom Pauly and Justin Houston harassing Aaron Rodgers potentially for most of the night.
Now, do you see the passing game taking precedence over here, or do you think that Mike McCarthy, great coach, is going to end up actually still sticking with the run game? I understand James Starks is obviously no Eddie Lacy by any comparison, but will he still mix in a healthy run game right there?
I think you have to keep the defense honest, then keep them on their toes. If they know that Aaron Rodgers is going to drop back every time, they can just pin back their ears and just go after him. So I feel like a steady dose of keeping it honest, whether you just get chunk yardage or if you're just getting 1 or 2 yards, you got to keep the defense honest. So.
And I mean, this is going to be a great game all throughout. The Chiefs 2-1, the Packers are obviously 2-0 right now, or 3-0. We're looking forward to. No, they're 2-0. We're looking forward to going forward there. But I guess swinging on to another big game from this weekend. A big game, obviously, to me, and a big game to Ryan over here. The Philadelphia Eagles took on the New York Jets, and the Eagles obviously have been maligned with just poor play, really from the offense, not so much from the defense if you think about it. But, the Pope came to Philadelphia, and guess what? He blessed us. He blessed Philadelphia. And so let's throw it over to Ryan and I guess get his take on that.
Well, I think the Jets lost the game more than Philadelphia won the game. As you can see, Philadelphia had a very big second quarter in 21 points, and that's pretty much what decided the game. But you realize the Jets eventually started making their comeback, and if if Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't throw an interception with 3 minutes left, they maybe come back and make the game, at least force the game into overtime. Mm-hmm. But 3 interceptions is not going to win a football game, especially in the National Football League. And I really think the Jets threw away this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game of two halves. I mean, Philadelphia played a great offensive half in the first half, and then defensively they just had to rely on what they had. And the rookies came up big, too, with Jordan Hicks and Eric Rowe. But I guess going over to, talking about quarterbacks and throwing interceptions, let's actually talk about a quarterback that this weekend joined a select few with 400 career touchdown passes in Tom Brady. So, Vince, what do you think, obviously, Tom Brady, great career right there.
Yeah.
Let's throw it over to you.
I think even this year he's having an even better year. I was looking at some statistics with New England really kind of going with this dink and dunk passing game. He's having the ball in the pocket before he releases it for less than 2 seconds. So that's pretty hard to defend for, the pass rush isn't going to get there in 2 seconds, and it's really hard to get up on somebody if you're just going to throw short routes. And New England's really utilizing that, and their red zone package is just ridiculous. They've got, Rob Gronkowski, and they're running lots of motions where they're getting linebackers covering the big tight ends, which is really difficult for them to do. So you're just almost seeing an evolution of Brady's game where he's putting up some just video game-like numbers in the first 3 weeks of the season. But he's a great player. We knew that. His greatness was never really in question. He's just kind of proving that this far in the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a season of just revenge. And if you guys can actually name the other 3 in the history of football with 400-plus touchdown passes, who would you say they are?
It's Marino, right? Favre, and
the leader right now, playing for the Broncos, Peyton Manning. And finally, our last point real quick before we get cut off. Week 4 is right around the corner, gentlemen. And the NFL is starting to go international with football games happening over in London in Wembley Stadium. And so we have the Jets opening that up. And so I guess let's just touch upon this real quick. Football, American football, the proper football, going international, what do we see with that? Recent years has taken hold. They're up against the Jets and Dolphins this upcoming week. What do you see coming from this, and will it continue to be a big thing in years to come?
Well, I think it will, honestly. The NFL is definitely trying to expand market, and they obviously, I think, have come up to almost reaching their peak here in the American market. Everybody watches the Super Bowl. Everybody watches football on Sunday or Saturday, if you're college football even. But I think expanding the market's a big deal. They've gotten great turnouts in London, and I think England's obviously the first market that they want to break into, just like how soccer wants to break into the United States. But I think it'll do pretty well. I don't think it's going to be Barclays Premier League on Saturdays mornings, but I think it'll do pretty well for itself.
All right, and real quick, guys, prediction for tonight's game: Chiefs-Packers. Ryan.
I got to go Packers 24-21.
Vince?
I'm going to say the Packers win 28-10.
Packers as well, 36-14. And anyway, that's all the time we have for Going for Two. For Vince and Ryan, I'm Deepak, and stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming at you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's segment of Ice Time. I'm Rachel here with Ryan. We're going to start off this week's segment talking about the Bruins preseason. They're currently 4-0, and 3 of their 4 games have gone to OT or shootout. This record's really starting them off well.
It's really doing well for them, Rachel. They're definitely playing very well. They don't have Milan Lucic, so it's definitely an interesting lineup choice. I know that's a tough one for you as a Bruins fan.
It's a heartbreaker, but you know what? Maybe he's in a better place.
I don't know about that, but we'll see anyway. Definitely, and they haven't even really been overly affected with the whole 3-on-3 overtime format yet. They've been lucky enough where they've had just regular games. If they win, they win. If not, they don't. I mean, that's plain and simple.
Yes, Krejci scored 2 goals last game, which was really great. Torrey Krug with the game-winning goal. Only a minute 58 into overtime. Great feeling as Boston, as the older men can really, even though Krug's not that old, he's really showing the other Providence boys how it's done, and I think the lineups are going to be pretty good.
I think so as well.
Malcolm Subban made 18 saves and goal last game, but unfortunately we got word that he was sent back to the Providence farm team. Sad to see him because I was really hoping personally that this would be his year in Boston.
I was really hoping that he made the 24/7 so we could see PK against Malcolm. That would have been an excellent
rivalry
time.
would be great. We know a lot of the Boston fan base hates PK, but we do have a big love for Subban, and I hope to see him soon back in some NHL games. Chara also this weekend was declared day by day after an upper body injury, but he was seen free skating today according to NHL.com. Monday, September 28th. So we're going to hope for an appearance in their next preseason game during the Detroit Red Wings. Blackhawks on the cup. The name is finally engraved.
It's obviously now time since the season's just started, but yes, all 52 names on the Blackhawks were engraved on Sunday. We're seeing a lot of repeats in Chicago. We need to mix it up here.
It's a dynasty, This the 3rd time the team has been on the cup in the past 6 seasons, You got to wonder, how much more can they get?
Well, since they lost Sharp, I don't know how much more they're going to get.
I don't know.
They're still going to be the Blackhawks, though.
Yeah.
Will they fall to the odd year curse like every other team, like the San Francisco Giants in baseball? Who will know?
Their banner raising ceremony will be on October 7th in their season opener versus New York Rangers at the United Center. Speaking of Blackhawks, they did just sign Brent Seabrook to an 8-season extension worth $55 million. How much college could that pay for?
That would be at least almost 60 children in college, especially at AU. But definitely, Brent Seabrook was a key player they needed to lock up. Him and Duncan Keith are probably the best defensive pairing in the league. He's a very key player. He's also on my fantasy hockey team, so I'm very happy he's staying in Chicago. But definitely, he's a prolific player, and he definitely makes a big difference, especially on the power play.
Oh, totally. In a press conference after their 3-1 win over the St. Louis Blues, he said, "It's a huge relief. I'm proud to be a Blackhawk, and I would like to spend the rest of my career in Chicago." Next, we're going to focus on the NHL expansion. As many of you know, two focus cities are Las Vegas and Quebec City. Las Vegas, some gambling. I think we're going to see some more hockey bets. I don't want this to become horse season, but pucks and ponies is very big for Eddie Olczyk. According to ESPN.com, both of the cities are set to create presentations in front of the NHL exec board on Tuesday in New York City. Who do you think is going to win?
Quebec City. Quebec City's been licking their chops ever since the Nordiques have been gone. They want their team back in the old arena. It's definitely been a little lonely. Right now, they've only really been filling it up with Pee Wee hockey every January. But definitely, Las Vegas is an interesting market, but you're only going to draw tourists. You're not going to really have a steady fan base. I think Quebec City is obviously, bringing hockey back to where it once was with the Nordiques. Will they be the Nordiques again? Who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think Quebec City's got.
I could see a Heritage Classic coming that way too, possibly.
Absolutely.
The results of these presentations will be reported to the NHL Board of Governors, but there is no definitive timeline for decisions. And with that, how many days till hockey?
10 days. 10 days until hockey.
Get pumped, and we'll see you next week.
Hello, and welcome back to SportsZone. This is a new segment that we have called Fantasy 411. It's probably a copyrighted thing, so if this gets out to the public, we will be sued for millions. Anyway, guys, fantasy in this regard will refer to NFL. And so I guess right off the bat, we got to start with your number one person who you really want on your team. I understand most people go for the running backs, but the guy who's going to carry your team has to be the quarterback, And so let's throw it over to the resident Pittsburgh fan right here, Vince. Any add drop advice you might give following the Steelers game?
Well, obviously you're going to want to drop Ben Roethlisberger, and I would advise not picking up Mike Vick. I think you're going to see a significant drop-off with the Steelers' offense with Mike Vick out. He has a different skill set than Ben Roethlisberger, and as a result of that, I feel like you're going to see Antonio Brown's production really drop off as Mike Vick is a little bit more mobile. I think they're going to try getting him outside the pocket and do a little bit more of bootleg type stuff, so that we'll see Antonio Brown kind of suffer a little bit. But on the flip side, I think Le'Veon Bell becomes a more significant part of that offense, so maybe his fantasy value, which is already very high, and a lot of people probably can't pick him up because he's probably was a top pick, but I think he's going to have a significant increase in productivity.
Well, would you say that maybe he won't end up being much of a scrambler? Because I know when he was with the Eagles, at least, they tried to make him a pocket passer, and that kind of led to that injury that led to Nick Foles taking charge. But anyway, let's actually move it over to Ryan, who kind of gave a look of disagreement right there. So Ryan, what's your take on the whole Roethlisberger-Vick situation?
Well, obviously Antonio Brown's still going to get his touches. He's definitely the best fantasy wide receiver in the league, and he's been the most targeted by Ben Roethlisberger. He's gotten 9 targets in, I think, almost 10 games now, 10 straight games now. It's obscene. But however, since Michael Vick is a scrambling quarterback, I think Le'Veon Bell's numbers are going to drop in the rushing department on the fact that Michael Vick's going to try to extend plays. They're going to be able to run a lot more QB draw plays. Granted, he's still going to get yards out of the backfield on short passes because Michael Vick, who knows if he's going to have the arm to throw the deep ball to Antonio Brown. And I know Vince is disagreeing with me right now as our resident Steelers fan.
Of course.
But I feel that that's my take on it.
And just to play it safe, I actually would not drop Roethlisberger. I would actually just put him on my bench. 4 to 6 weeks, it sounds like a long time, but after that, there's still plenty of season left. Also, still following along with quarterbacks. I mean, there are plenty of quarterbacks. If you look around in your local leagues that are still free agents. I mean, among those are Tyrod Taylor of the Buffalo Bills, Johnny Manziel, who I understand he's not the definitive starter, but he will be put in there at times. Other guys like rookie, second overall pick, Marcus Mariota, who's actually had a solid season so far. The first game, kind of shaky. After that, though, he took off. But I think perhaps the biggest surprise right here is Andy Dalton, a free agent in a lot of leagues, throwing to someone of A.J. Green's caliber. What do you guys make of that, Ryan, in terms of Andy Dalton, who I understand the Bengals have been a team that's been on the cusp, but that shouldn't affect fantasy value, should it?
Well, I actually just picked up Andy Dalton on my fantasy team during the commercial break. I think Andy Dalton's one of the more underrated players in fantasy football. He has A.J. Green. He has Mohamed Sanu, who, may I mention, went to high school with me. But definitely, he's got Giovanni Bernard coming out of the backfield. He's got a very, very solid offense to spread the ball around to. It's very surprising that he's not in more leagues. I thought he would have been a high draft pick.
And Vince, Marcus Mariota, I understand he's a rookie, but big things, we're expecting from him, obviously, as a Heisman winner and a former Oregon player against, Chip Kelly, or under Chip Kelly, and you've seen what he's done with his teams in the NFL. Do you think it's right for him to still be a free agent? I understand it's end of week 3, but, would you pick him up?
I would not pick him up before of some of the other people we've mentioned. If Tyrod Taylor's still out there, if Derek Carr's still out there, I would take either of those 2 quarterbacks over Mariota at the moment. That's not a dig against Mariota. I just think you look at Derek Carr, he's had 2 straight 300-plus yard games, and he's got 2 really high-caliber receivers to throw to in Oakland, so that's kind of an against-the-grade type thought. Oakland having good fantasy value, but that's not saying that Mariota is a bad player necessarily, or that somebody you want to not pick up, but I think there's other options that are better that potentially could be free agents in lots of leagues.
Mm-hmm. And quickly, with the run game too. I mean, now switching over to that, we have, big name running backs are obviously always taken first, but then there are always those on the final, lower 16 teams in the NFL who are the starting running backs but still don't get enough love. When you look at these top guys, though, you have guys like Eddie Lacy, who's currently facing injury, Jamal Charles, who's always a question mark, still staying healthy for now. But one guy I've looked at is Devontae Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons, though he has reportedly broken ribs, and that's going to keep him out. Where do you value the run game right there, especially with someone like Freeman?
Well, I think he's got a high fantasy value. I think he's definitely the other dimension when Matt Ryan can't throw the ball to Julio and Roddy White. So definitely, Devontae Freeman's gotten a lot of touches in the first 2 weeks, first 2-3 weeks. And I think he, as of obviously now he's injured, so he's going to be out for a little while. But I think when he comes back, he's going to still continue to get touches.
Vince, someone like Darren Sproles, is he worth it?
I would say he's safe to have because he's always going to have those explosive plays, whether or not you play him every week. But just he's somebody to have on your bench, maybe fit him in as a flex type player. I feel like he's got enough explosive plays in him, and especially in a Chip Kelly offense, that he can still be of value to somebody.
Returned a punt, scored a touchdown. And real quick, final note, Cody Parkey of the Eagles, great rookie season last year, re-injured his groin. So fantasy owners, I would say take a look at other potential kickers that are in the free agent market. The Eagles are expected to work out 6 kickers. Find out which one might be picked and go for them, honestly. The Eagles offense heating up. I think that's a strong pick. Anyway, that's been it for the inaugural segment of Fantasy 411. I'm Deepak Bhagat, and stay tuned for more Sports Zone coming at you.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Zone. This is going to be our baseball segment. We're getting to third base, and the season just about over. We got right about a week left. These races are starting to get wrapped up. So instead of talking about that, as we've done in the past 2 weeks, we're going to look towards the postseason, not make playoff predictions, but we're going to make award predictions. We're running out of time to get that in. So now it's as good a time as any, right?
Yeah, of course.
So we're going to take a look at the MVP, the Cy Young, and Rookie of the Year in each league. I've got Vince and I've got Deepak who are going to provide us with their insights on this one. So let's start in the National League and talk National League MVP. A lot of people think it's staying local. Deepak, I'll start with you. Do you agree with the many that the National League MVP is coming from nowhere else than Washington, D.C.?
I do. I believe that it will go to the recent chokee, Bryce Harper. It was only about time until he actually broke out, and it's actually, as much as people don't like him in terms of the attitude that he gives off, and sure he doesn't hustle 100% of the time, he's still this is what everyone waited for. When he was drafted, this is that breakout, year for him, and I really can't see anyone else rivaling him unless the writers get it wrong again and just throw it over to Clayton Kershaw or Zach Greinke, which I'm sure there will be votes for him.
Vince, do you agree with Deepak's assessment that it's Bryce Harper's to lose at this point?
I think, yeah, I would tend to agree. I don't see any other horses in the race unless they decide to go with a pitcher who they'll give the Cy Young to, but as long as Bryce Harper can stay away from Jonathan Papelbon, I think he'll be okay, and he should get the MVP.
We're going to talk about Papelbon a little bit later in this segment, but It's interesting that you guys both brought it up. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree with both of you. I think certainly Harper is the easy choice. Over 40 home runs. He's just 22 years old. I mean, what can you say? He's just a ridiculous talent in all sense of the word. So we're going to shift leagues, head over to the American League now, and talk about that MVP. Might be a bit more hotly contested. Vince, I'll open with you. Who's your pick for AL MVP?
I think he'll get it for the second year in a row, even though his team right now is on the outside looking in as far as playoffs go. I think Mike Trout has just once again had another Mike Trout-like season. That's really the only way to describe it. He's got all facets of the game, and he's just putting it all together. Just the other day, making phenomenal plays in the field. He's on a different level, and until he gets injured or slows down or something, this is just the standard that he's setting that we all expect from him.
Well, Mike Trout is as much of a five-tool player as you were going to see in today's game. So it's certainly, as you said, he won it last year. It's a popular pick. Deepak, I'll turn it over to you. Do you agree Mike Trout, or do you have a different player on?
I'm actually going to disagree right there. I think it will go to Josh Donaldson of the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy who, for years, we've expected, nothing more than a productive season. And this year, he gave us that and much more, helping the Blue Jays to the postseason for the first time in 22 years. Additionally, while I will agree that Mike Trout is having a Mike Trout year, I took a chance to look over at their stats and their WAR and WAR's wins above replacement. While Mike Trout does have a higher WAR, you still have to factor in the fact that he's on the Angels and Dallas is on the Blue Jays, which has more productive players. So all those wins above replacement can't just rely on him. As well as Trout actually has tailed off in certain offensive areas compared to previous years. I mean, he's hitting under 300, just barely, but still under 300. Only 88 runs scored, 10 stolen bases, and a whole lot of strikeouts. And this is not what everyone saw Mike Trout as. I think when you go more into it, yes, he's still fun to watch, but offensively, if I were to award the MVP, I would go for Josh Donaldson over that because he's still more complete, and you don't expect a guy who doesn't steal a lot of bases to steal a lot of bases, and he certainly hasn't had to worry about that.
Two interesting names for sure. I think those are going to be the top two vote getters. How they decide to go, we'll see. I think Trout is the safer pick because he's Mike Trout and he's got the name power. I think Donaldson may be the right choice, but that's just my opinion. And I saw an interesting stat on Donaldson, the first player for the Blue Jays to hit 40 home runs and 40 doubles since Carlos Delgado back in 2000.
Yep.
So it's been a long time coming for those Blue Jays. So we'll head from offense to pitching. We'll stay in the American League this time, and we are going to award the American League Cy Young. Deepak, I'll head back to you. I think you brought up your choice last week.
I did.
Are you sticking with your guy?
I am. David Price will be the AL Cy Young Award winner. I mean, he's been nothing short of consistent. While obviously he is in a tight battle with Dallas Keuchel of the Houston Astros, I mean, I'm going to bring up the same argument, and writers always look at this. It's, does the team get to the postseason? Right now, the Astros are still there in the wild card race, but it's basically their spot to lose. The Blue Jays, they maintain the consistency. They're still doing what they should be doing, and David Price has been a huge part of that.
All right, Vince, I'll turn it over to you. Do you have is the price right for the AL Cy Young?
I would say the price is wrong. I would tend to give it to Dallas Keuchel. He's been absolutely phenomenal this year, part of the resurgent Astros team that's in contention to be in the playoffs, and he's lights out at home. You can't beat him at home. He's phenomenal. I feel like he will be helped if his team makes a push and does get into the playoffs. That will only help his case, and I feel like that's the only way he wouldn't get it, is if the Astros kind of tail off in the last week of the season and fall out of that second wild card spot and wind up missing the playoffs.
All right, two big names. I think Keuchel, it's 17-0 at home or 15-0 at home. Something just ridiculous.
Something like Jose Fernandez, though, with Marlins.
Jose Fernandez is 17-0, I believe, and Keuchel 15-0, but Fernandez over two different seasons, and he had the Tommy John, and he's been in and out of the rotation. But yeah, still very good. He's a name to watch in the future for a Cy Young if he can stay on the field. We'll move to the National League now. Another kind of a two-horse race, really, for this one. Zach Greinke, Jake Arrieta. Both those teams headed to the playoffs almost guaranteed. Actually, definitely guaranteed. Well, the Dodgers...
Until they wrap it up.
Yeah, but pretty sure. So, Vince, we'll start with you. And who are you giving it to, Greinke or Arrieta?
I'm going to give it to Jake Arrieta. What have you done for me lately? Since I think the end of June, he's just been on a tear. He again performed yesterday strongly, showing potentially if the Cubs wind up in a wild card game. I think you got to look at it like that. If you just had a wild card game, you have to pick one of these pitchers. As of right now, who do you want to pitch? I think it's Jake Arrieta. He's just been phenomenal. Nobody can hit him. He's hit as many home runs recently as he's given up. So I think he's having an unbelievable season, and not the one that people would expect when the Cubs brought in John Lester. Maybe we thought John Lester would be in this Cy Young conversation, but it's Jake Arrieta who's become the ace of that team.
Well, Arrieta, I believe the major league leader in wins. He's got 21 wins now on the year. Greinke, on the other hand, leading in ERA at like 1.6 or something along those lines. Deepak, which of those two gets your vote?
I'm also in the Jake Arrieta camp. I mean, the Cubs are making the postseason for the first time since '08, and he's just been nothing but consistent. I mean, he came over in that trade as kind of just like a guy the Orioles wanted to get rid of, and he's blossomed. And I think over the last 50 innings or so, he has like a .44 ERA, maybe even lower. I mean, he's just been absolutely lights out, consistent, and helping to lead, a staff that apart from him, no names really jump out, and a young team that under Joe Maddon's leadership has blossomed into a fun team to watch.
We're going to stick with the Cubs, actually, and change gears a little bit in awards. NL Rookie of the Year, the front runner for that one is on the Cubs, Kris Bryant. He's really taken the league by storm this year. He's the only name I can really think of for Rookie of the Year. If you guys have another one, shoot it out there.
Should have won.
A realistic name, please, Deepak. I will start with you, though. Is there anyone other than Bryant realistically?
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I can't, think of anyone who could rival him. I mean, he's got 27 home runs or so, about 80-odd RBIs. So I think he's still doing what he should be doing. He plays good enough defense, too, for that team. So just something we've been waiting for.
Vince, agree, Kris Bryant?
I think he's really the pick at the moment. It helped a lot. Some people were throwing around the Pirates' utility infielder, Young-Ho Kang, but he fractured his leg now, so I think he's now fallen out of contention. I don't think he was a realistic choice, even if he did stay healthy. I think it's Kris Bryant all the way.
Oh, I 100% agree. May have gotten his season off to a week later start than everyone else, but you wouldn't know that from looking at his numbers, like he's been in the majors for 5 years already. We'll switch over to the American League, Rookie of the Year. A few names can be thrown around, I guess, more for this one. I know personally, I think it goes to Carlos Correa of the Astros. That's a young team that's really blossomed this year. Vince, we'll start with you. Do you have another name for this one?
I think I'll side with you, Carlos Correa. There's really not the same like breakout star that we have like Kris Bryant on the National League side, and so among a lot of players who are having okay rookie seasons, I think Carlos Correa separated himself a little bit and will be the AL Rookie of the Year.
Deepak, do you have a name?
I'm going to disagree and go with Francisco Lindor. While it may obviously end up being Astros being in the postseason, Correa winning it, Lindor's just been consistent for the Cleveland Indians. I mean, just doing basically what no one actually really expected him to do. I mean, he's been in the majors for most of the season now, and his batting average is still over 300. And as a rookie, I don't care what you say, it's still hard to do, no matter how great of a hitting prospect you may be. And I think just the fact that the Indians now have a solid middle infielder right there, I think it should go to him as Rookie of the Year for the AL.
All right, there you go. Those are your more than six awards we've covered. A lot of names to think about for you over at home. I think we might be running out of time, but really quickly, I said we'd come back to Jonathan Papelbon.
Yeah.
He's been suspended for the rest of the year by both the MLB and the Nationals after choking out Bryce Harper in the dugout. Yeah. Is this the end of Papelbon's time in Washington, D.C., Deepak?
Yes. I mean, just plain and simple, yes. He's a clubhouse cancer. I'm sorry to say it, but, as much talent as he has, I don't care if you're a veteran who maybe you're telling Harper to hustle, which is like a good thing to do, but there's a time and a place, and his actions need to have consequences, and I think that's where the punishment comes from.
Vince, agree, disagree?
I agree. And if you're going to have that veteran leader kind of stepping in and talking to the franchise player, I think from a GM's perspective and from just the organization perspective, you'd like that conversation to be a little bit more civil and maybe happening behind closed doors as opposed to just a violent attack in the dugout. I think going forward, that's not a good good thing you want associated with your team. So I think the Nationals will be good to just cut him loose.
Yeah, and in the weirdest situation possible, he then went on to pitch the 9th inning and give up 5 runs to the Phillies in a game the Nationals lost. So that was just a total disaster. And the manager of the Nationals, Matt Williams, probably on his last legs as manager, did not handle it very well either. But I think that is all the time we have for getting to third. Thanks for tuning in. We got more Sports Zone for you coming up after this.
Hello and welcome back to our final segment of Sports Zone, our favorite segment, thumbs. Basically, thumbs, good and bad in sports. I'm always talking fast because we're running out of time. Anywho, let's just immediately throw it over to Ryan and start us off.
Well, my big thumbs down is thumbs down to the New York Jets for losing to the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 interceptions by Ryan Fitzpatrick. just got left cold shouldered there, T5. But yeah, definitely thumbs down goes to the New York Jets. I've got to say thumbs up, though. I got to give it credit where credit is due to the New York Mets for clinching the division for the first time in a very long time. I know Dan Lignato back there will be very, very happy about his New York Mets victory tour.
Rachel?
As your resident Bostonian, I'm gonna have to give my thumbs up. Steven Gostkowski broke the NFL record, 423 consecutive points after touchdown. You know what? Kicker's a legend. You should all have him on your fantasy teams, in my opinion. But I am going to give a thumbs down to my Minutemen. They did try against Notre Dame this weekend. They put up a good 20 points. I'm sorry. I was hoping better from you guys.
All right, finally, thumbs up go to the Eagles for winning a game against the Jets.
Eagles, fly.
And the Pope blessed Philadelphia. So thank you, Pope Francis. Another thumbs up goes to, even though he's not here, Justin White's Redskins. Well, no, they're actually a real team, but they lost. He thought they were going to win. He was all confident. No, he was cocky about it.
He was very cocky about it.
And you know what? They lost, and ha. Thumbs down goes to Jonathan Papelbon for obviously just being immature. I understand what he meant to do was obviously tell Bryce Harper to hustle it out, but he's in no place then to go ahead and physically actually assault Harper. Or anyone for that matter. And the Nats handled it in a poor way in terms of, waiting to take action on it. Matt Williams as well. Anyway, that's all the time that we have for Sports Zone. So for Dan Lignato, Vince Salandro, Ryan Siegel, Rachel Hotmeyer, I'm Deepak Bhagat. Thank you for watching Sports Zone, and catch us next week on week 4, I believe, of Sports Zone. Stay classy.